conversation up about dog breeds later.
Oh, sounds good. Sounds good.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. Today we are talking about getting home on time. In the fast-paced world of veterinary medicine, getting home on time can feel as elusive as a unicorn, although, let's be honest, we do love our unicorns in vet med. But AcharaVet is proving that it's not impossible. With their people-first approach, powered by Digitail and Tails AI, they're transforming workflows across multiple locations, empowering teams with smarter training, boosting appointment capacity, and all while making sure the staff actually gets home on time. Today, I am welcoming Dermot Jevens and Dr. Liza Price to share with us just how they are making this impossible dream a reality. Hi, guys.
Hey, Heather.
Can you just give us a little bit of information on who you are, give us some background, and then we'll dive into the conversation?
Oh, thank you. My name, so I'm Liza Price. I own Riverside Vet, and we just partnered with Achara to make that possible a year ago. So we've been open a year now, and I've been practicing in the upstate of South Carolina in general practice for the last 11 years. So, and I have a daughter, a 5-year-old daughter named Emma, and we are obsessed with plants, fish, and hiking. And so, yeah, that's me there.
Awesome. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
And Heather, I'm Dermot Jevens. I'm I don't know what I would call myself, a recovering vet surgeon. I was a vet surgeon for a long time. Actually ended up retiring, but I've always loved vet medicine, always loved the business side of vet medicine as much as the cutting side of vet medicine, and kind of came back to life to try, because I love vet medicine. I think it's it's the greatest product in the world, taking care of people's pets. And so and it's been a little chaotic lately, and we wanted to come and kind of play and see if we could do things a little differently. And so we founded AcharaVet about a little over a year ago, and yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Well, why don't we start at the beginning? I always say it's a very good place to start, but can you tell me a little bit about the kind of motivation and inspiration for beginning with AcharaVet?
Yeah. Well, I think, if in the world that we're all living in at the moment, and probably anybody who's listening here is part of the vet space, it's gotten a little chaotic. Pandemics, a lot of change in the ownership model that's out there, a lot of private equity interest. I'm not saying the private equity interest is bad or good, but it's there and it changes the environment. There've been a lot of inflationary pressures on vet medicine, much beyond what's happening in the current workspace or in the rest of the world. And a lot of pressure to perform, and maybe a little bit of a loss of focus on what we feel is truly important, which is looking out for pets, looking out for pet owners, and looking out for the people who take care of pet owners. And so that's what kind of led to the founding of Achara. We are Achara in Gaelic. I've been out of Ireland a long time, so the accent's getting a little bit soft at this stage. But Achara in Gaelic means "hey friend," and so for us, we think that we have a number of friends in work every day, and our friend might be our client, our friend might be our pet, our friend might be our assistant taking care of the dog in the runs in the back of the hospital, our friend might be our partners, our friend might be our vendors, and we feel that it is important to balance and make decisions around all of our friends together. An imbalanced decision that might benefit one of our friends is going to hurt one of our other friends at some point. And so the whole focus, and that's why we decided to call it Achara, to keep us focused on the concept of our friends are important to us, and our friends are keeping an eye on all of our friends is what's going to lead us to success on a long-term basis.
Mm-hmm. I love that. The philosophy of taking care of each other. That's one of the values here at Digitail. It's something near and dear to my heart, and keeping that open to, not just taking care of the pets, but also taking care of the people that bring them in, taking care of the people that are on your staff, taking care of each other. What else makes AcharaVet different?
I think the other thing that makes AcharaVet different is, actually, to quote one of our kind of favorite authors, a guy called Simon Sinek, who's the person who came up with the concept of finding your why. We're big believers in balancing people, purpose, and profitability. We think as we look at to get into the business side of it a little more, if we look at our KPIs, our first KPI is employee satisfaction. Our second KPI is customer satisfaction. Our third KPI is growth, and our fourth KPI is profitability. And we feel that, sometimes when people talk about balancing people and balancing purpose, you can start thinking a little, does this sound a little too kumbaya? When are we going to break out the incense? And the reality of it is that you can actually do it. You can, and we feel, and we're proving it, that if indeed you place a focus on your people and you place a focus on your clients and on their pets, that growth will come and profitability will come. And so much, I guess, again, I don't want to sound all kumbaya, but I think in Western society right now, we might have switched a little bit too far towards the side of or maybe push the capitalism thing a little too far. And maybe we need to come back a little towards looking at a more blended approach, towards looking out for the people to then create a successful business.
Gotcha. And I mean, they're all intrinsically linked, I think, as well.
Yeah, they are.
People sometimes forget.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's get down to the nitty gritty. Why is getting home on time important for you? I mean, this seems like an obvious question, but
it's that work-life balance. And that was I remember when we were right before we opened Riverside Vet, and this also applies to all the other hospitals as well, but we picked 5:30 as the time to close so that we could cater to everyone with their life outside of work. You can't get out at 6 and be there to pick up your kid from daycare on time. You got to make closing at a practical time when people can actually work full time and do what they need to get home at a decent time, to have the energy to be present at home and not be so drained. And so getting home on time, we're really proud of it because it is an intentional decision with every hour of the workday that goes that we make to make sure that our team gets off and we are walking out at 5:30 so that we can walk out, close the door. Work is behind us. It's over. We're now home. We're with our families. We don't want to take work home with us. We want to be home on time and be there because that predictability and that security and knowing you're going to be able to be there, like the security and knowing I'm going to be there to pick up my daughter, make dinner with her and my husband, that is a huge reason why I feel that our team that's what makes us different. We know what goes into the recipe for burnout, and getting home on time is a huge factor in that. There's many factors in burnout. You could go 10 more podcasts on it. Totally aware of that. Just because I feel like anyone in vet med's been there knows that. And that's the best part of it is we know the people in this group have been there in the rough times of burnout. We know what we need to do different and we know how to make a difference, and we're changing vet med.
Absolutely. I can speak from experience. There was one clinic I worked at and we never got out on time and our close time was 6 o'clock and I routinely was there until 7:30, 8 o'clock every day, every week. And it made it very difficult when I did have children to be able to have commitments, like being able to pick them up, because it was just it wasn't realistic to be able to expect to get out on time, which definitely led to burnout and frustration. So it's extremely important. Now, being in vet med, do you think it's a realistic goal?
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to come off a bit arrogant here. I have some private pet peeves, and I am failing my team if they are not out on time.
I was going to say, who do you think is responsible for getting everyone out on time? Who do you think?
That is mine.
Yeah.
That's the business owner, and you have to look in the mirror every minute of the day and know this is what I do for my team. I get them out on time, because if I don't get them out on time, I am part of the reason why my working mother, the team, I have a melting pot of women, and some of them, I just take example for the working mom just because I'm in that. I have a 5-year-old daughter, but I don't want them to feel the way I have felt before starting Riverside, where, okay, you go through an inefficient system throughout the day, then you're late getting home. So then the inner voice is saying, oh gosh, well, now I'm letting my daughter down. Now I'm letting my husband down. We're late getting to homework. We're late getting to dinner. And so, yeah, I contribute to their mental health after hours. If I'm the reason they're not getting home on time, to be there as the wife that they want to be, the friend, the daughter, sister, whatever role they play, that's on me.
Mm-hmm. I think that, I'm sure it's a well-known saying, but the feeling that your employees have on a Sunday night, which not necessarily works for clinics that are open during the weekend, but the day before they begin their work really says a lot about the culture and the business as a whole, really. So how do we do it? How do we get home on time if we're already so busy? I mean, I know we want to help every one of our clients that has an issue that calls us last minute. We want to squeeze everything in as much as possible. We want to be as efficient as possible. But how do we really do it? What are the importance of asking the 5 whys?
I think the 5 whys, if anybody is in a place where they're struggling with how to figure this out, there's a whole concept of the 5 whys. And if you're not familiar with it, I definitely encourage anybody to look it up. But the whole concept of 5 whys is actually drilling down and looking, well, why are we here late? Well, we're here late because of such and such. Well, why is that happening? And then why is that? And then why is that? And it will slowly but surely bring you down to the kind of the root cause of why any problem might exist. I think in vet hospitals, I think it takes probably 3 things to figure out how to get this turned around. Number 1 is deciding to be intentional about getting home on time. It is an intention. It's a bit like, I was just thinking about this before we were doing the podcast, and I was thinking about my actually for all the business people and all the MBAs and PhDs and everything that I've come across, probably the greatest leader I've ever worked with was my dad, who never went to high school. And at one point in his life, he was a smoker. And he tried this nicotine patch and that chewing gum and this, that, and the other. And finally, a friend of his died from lung cancer. And suddenly there was the intention there to give up smoking, not just looking at some tool to help him give up smoking. And I think the first thing is being intentional about getting people out on time. And the second is then asking the whys as to why that's not happening. And then the third part is not only having the practice owner be responsible for getting everybody out on time, but including everybody in the process. Because we've all worked in environments where the whole team is, well, this doesn't happen or that's not happening. And it's a case of actually maybe break out the mirror and see what you're going to do to help us all get out on time. So aligning everybody around the why we want to get out on time. Asking questions about why it might not be happening at the moment, and then having everybody continuously work together to work towards making it happen. And it won't happen overnight. It takes time, it takes effort, but if the intention is there, you're well on your road to making that happen.
Mm-hmm. Now, would you say that intention or tools, which do you think is more important?
That's a great question. And I would go back to the nicotine gum. I think you can have 10 different packs of nicotine gum, but if you don't decide as a team you want to get out on time, it ain't going to happen.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's intention. It's my hope.
Intention. It is intention all the way. Then you need tools.
Exactly. Yeah, the tools, I feel like they're tools. That's what the word means. It's utilizing something to achieve a goal, right? But you have to have the intention set before.
Yep. Absolutely. I remember, now I'm going to really age myself. I am by far the oldest person on this podcast by a long shot. But I remember reading a book back in the 90s called, and it'll, for anybody who was around pre-2000, you'll get a kick out of this. It was called Techno Trends 2000, But there was a key element in there, which was do not use technology for technology's sake. Find your problem. And then you find the technology that's going to help you solve that problem. And that's where, for example, with segueing into AI. And
I love it. Speaking of segues.
Segueing into AI is a tool. AI is a tool. It's not going to get you out on time. It absolutely is not going to get you out on time unless you decide that you want to get out on time. It's not going to help you be more efficient and more effective unless you decide you want to become more effective and more efficient. But if you do, then all of a sudden that opens up your eyes and opens your mind to what tools you may want to bring in and may want to put in place.
Mm-hmm. And I think that was, oh, sorry, I was going to say that was one of the main goals of the developers and the amazing product team that we have at Digitail was not just using technology for technology's sake, not just putting AI into the software because it's the hip, cool thing to do. There was a lot of conversation with our clients, with the veterinary professionals that we have working at the company to think of what are the ways that this technology can actually help the people that are using our software.
Well, it was interesting. When we were getting this project started way back, we spent about a year trying to figure out where we wanted to go and what we wanted to do and what questions we wanted to answer. And I remember sitting with a husband-wife team. They were kind enough to invite me in and let me hang out in the practice. I'm not a general practitioner. I know nothing about general practice. I'm probably the world's worst person to have involved in this project, no matter what. But I remember it was a husband-wife team, awesome people. They had, she was the veterinarian owner, he was the manager, and he had an MBA, and then they had a number of associates working for them. And I was just hanging with them. I was putting in catheters, I was cleaning cages, I was just kind of hanging to just learn what I could. And late in the day, the husband and I were sitting around in his office just shooting the breeze. And his comment was, he says, I love the idea of where you guys are going with this. He said, but here's the problem you have to answer, because otherwise you're not going to accomplish this. He said, you got to find a way. He said, here's what happens every evening. We go to the baseball field and my wife is sitting there with her laptop, finishing up her records, and she misses our kid making the catch. He said, so I don't care what you think I don't care where you're going with all of this, but what you have to try and do is you have to try and solve for the problem of my wife missing that ball getting caught. And it was just such an amazing conversation to have. And it segues into where you guys are going with Digitail and thinking about not just technology for technology's sake, but technology that is actually impactful on the lives of veterinarians, the lives of technicians, the lives of receptionists, the lives, and most importantly, the lives of their families, because they're actually able to get home and not, because it's funny, we talk about getting home on time. So what's the definition of getting home on time? Is the definition of getting home on time for a veterinarian getting out of there at 5:30 or 5:45? Or is the definition of getting home on time getting home at 5:45 and not having any records to do? So you are actually physically and mentally at home. And so, that's where thinking about AI all of a sudden just can revolutionize people's lives.
Mm-hmm. Is that why you would say, my next question was going to be, why did you start using AI?
So I briefly will say our goal to be different is to be efficient, because there are systems that are, if you're working in an inefficient system, that is going to wear you down. That is where burnout hits. And so we had been talking about it, but I think for me personally, what made me go to AI, what I specifically remember it was going into work first week of April, and my associate vet had a personal emergency and she had to be out for the week. And, stuff happens. We're always there for each other. And I was sitting there and I was like, okay, Dermot and I had literally just been talking about the quick soaps, like maybe 1 or 2 weeks before. I'd kind of dabbled in with it, but that was the week where I had no other choice. The way I had been running my rooms was not going to work. There was no way I was going to see the amount that I was going to see and be able to be mentally present with the client, be there to help, be a part of my team and get my notes done. And, it's just, Dermot and I've talked about it a lot. Veterinarians, we identify very closely with our notes and our records. And maybe that's just the perfectionist side of us. I know a lot of us can be that way. And, if my record is perfect and well detailed and scripted out, than if I'm sending it off for medical insurance or, to another hospital for whatever reason or referral, I look good through those notes, and that's my self-worth, and that is a problem for another day. But that's really where vets are is, well, if my notes look perfect, it's just really, it means a lot to us. That is very personal to, I think, to a lot of veterinarians. And so I'll take one day, for example, that week, I just decided, I was like, I'm just going to have to do it. I'm going to try it. And it was amazing. The end of that day, I saw 35 appointments. We got out at 5:30. And because I was new, you're jumping into it. It's not perfect when you first start. It's a habit, a very intentional habit you've got to build, and then you are consistently perfecting on yourself. But for my first day of going all in, I only had 3. I called Dermot on my way home, and I was like, I have 3 records that I did not touch today. 35 patients seen, 3 that were not, I didn't get to those records, just end of day kind of stuff. And we're out on time. And I will never forget that day, because that was the day we were like, yeah, we're doing it. Like this is at another level. And then since April, I have been perfecting it and learning from it. But I feel that my hesitation with it was from change, and change is scary, I think, for a lot of people, not just veterinarians, but you've got to be. I was forced into it, and thank God I was, because it has changed our hospital.
I think I do remember hearing that story, and I think that you need to be commended too for your bravery, because I remember hearing that, the other vet was not able to come in, and you were looking at the schedule with, double the appointments than you would normally be seeing. And you made the decision based on the fact that you thought you could use this tool in order to become more efficient and help you. And you were the one that took that step forward. So I definitely want to give you credit for that.
It was absolutely her that took, because she called me early that morning, and I'm here. We all bounce ideas around together. It's a kind of a community of ideas floating around, or it's, and we're, hey, well, just start moving stuff around, and she's there, something, I'm not moving stuff around. We're going to roll with this and see what happens.
I had availability to probably bring in a relief vet that day, and I don't know, Heather. I was just like, nah, we're doing it. We're gonna do it. Like, we've been talking. Well, it's one thing to talk about an idea. Dermot and I had been talking about it, and I was like, yeah, I'll try it. But then it's like you're in the moment. You're like, but this is comfortable. I always do it this way, and I'll do it later. And then finally, I was like, I'm gonna jump in to do it. Like, I think finally, when you have a moment where it was just my moment, and I'm grateful for that day.
Mm-hmm. And you definitely jumped in with both feet, and we're so glad that you were able to utilize it to its fullest. I want to ask too, maybe the part of the hesitation, do you have any concerns about AI? Were you nervous about utilizing it for any other reasons other than the change aspect of what you were used to doing?
Help me here, Dermot. I think why was I so, like, now that I've been like so like in it since April, I'm like, I really don't know what was so scary about it. I think here's for me, I don't speak on everyone here, but for me, I have my groove. And when I'm in my groove and I do it my way, my routine, I've got things a certain way. My team knows how to work with it. And I can do my jam it up with the client in the room. I know I just had my rhythm, but I had 11 years of my rhythm down, which in my mind, I thought, well, it'll be better in Riverside because I have a support system and this phenomenal team. No, to bring true joy to a team and to bring true change, you got to do something different. I don't know why I was so afraid of it. I don't know if it was just vulnerable. I think it was me. You know what it was? I was probably making the mistake and making mistakes in front of my team and learn something new. That's a vulnerable position to be in as a leader, as the boss. And maybe that's why I hesitated. I was like, well, that's new, and technology is new. I'm 36. Like, I'm not going to say I'm the best technology savvy person on other things, but I think it was the fear of trying something new and my team seeing their boss that I may not know all the answers. I'm having to learn something, but you know what? That was the best way for us to continue to connect, was learn AI together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a valid feeling. And I think that, yeah, showing vulnerability like that with your team, it bonds you, it connects you, it shows that you're just human too, and that you're working to try to better things for everyone. Now, my one question was the quick soap, in case people are not familiar. It is a Tails or AI dictation from Tails. Were you using it for ambient listening, or were you dictating? And then what it does is it basically takes what it hears and puts it automatically into soap format, and then you just sync it with the record. So it's very efficient. But were you dictating, or were you letting it ambient listen in the room?
So I've done both ways. I feel like because you have to break a long years of habits. So I'm still building on this, Heather. So as I started it, I did my exam in the room in the beginning. I did the exam in the room, came out of the room. And because it was just different and scary, I did the quick soap in the back pharmacy, spouted out my exam and everything. And I got to sit there. And I think as I built trust with AI, I would watch my conversation. I knew exactly what I said. And then I'd watch it format it beautifully within a matter of under two. You can do this in 30. My records take under 2 minutes. 2 minutes seems long. You can never type as fast as you can speak. But to build trust, that is how I approached it, is I dictated the whole thing, and then I'd see it work. And I was like, oh wow, it works really good. Okay. And I thumbs up it. I did, but that's how I built trust with it. But for me, so you could go about this too. That's how I built trust, got comfortable with it. And then now we're recording in the room, and it's a gradual relationship. I think you have to build a relationship of trust. And that's how I started, was dictating when I got out of the room, which was super fast. My techs there listening, so they're very much in the know of what we're doing. And that's how I built trust and really fell in love with it.
Yeah, I love that. You can
into recording in the room.
Yeah, you can build on it, right? You can start small and kind of dip a toe in, and then as you get more comfortable, you kind of you get to roll with it. Now, I know we talked about this before, but can you tell us what impact Tails and AI has had at Riverside for the entire team, with time, socially, emotionally, all of that?
And yes, it's it comes everything with your team. We have a phenomenal group of compassionate, intentional, and kind people that I'm so proud to work with every day. And when you're a leader, your vibes flow down. So this has affected our whole group, because it has also affected me as their boss, because before AI, I was running perpetually behind on notes. You can't keep up. The old way, typing it out, you're not going to keep up. And so what happens is, as the vet, just take one of my hats that I wear during the day as the veterinarian, I would go to a room and I'd be like, all right, well, I'll finish those notes at the end of the day. And I procrastinate and it doesn't get done. But in my mind at the time, the old me would keep all this running list of all the things I had to get done. And I would keep kind of rehearsing it in my head while partially being present in the room with the client. And then walking out and being like, okay, I can't forget to do this, that, or that. And then you do forget things because you're not on it, because you're behind. And that constant cycle of running behind on notes was mentally exhausting, and having to do that and then also be a business owner, also be a wife, a mother, a friend, all the other roles I play in my life, it shows, and it shows in leadership. It's stressful, and my team feels that. They feel me, we feel each other. And so it's so simple, but it's really monumental for my mental health, at having my notes done in the moment, and then being able to even take it a step further with client experience and their journey. So now that we are recording in the room, either AI, getting your notes done in the moment, then you can serve them and use AI to send a personalized text message. I know we have the app, but there are some people that really appreciate a text as well. Hey, it was really great seeing you and Fluffy today.
Mm-hmm.
Really enjoyed talking about these key points. Keep me posted if you need anything. So the capacity that you have with Digital has incredibly enlightened our client experience, and it's allowed my team to have their leader back, and I'm more present with them on the floor. I'm not sitting there thinking about the things that constantly come up in a hospital and my notes are now off my plate. I can be present for more things like marketing, HR, which I kind of dabble in, but I have a manager for. But, I can be a better leader for them if I'm not constantly thinking about the list of things I got to get done because I didn't get it done because I wasn't efficient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the vibes definitely trickle down like that. And I know you were saying before that your technician noticed a marked difference in your vibes, in how you kind of came to work after getting tails down and being more efficient, and how it really kind of calmed you down and made you more present and more happy and peaceful. And that definitely is it's a cycle too with the staff and with the pet parents, because having it listen in the exam room is great, because then you're not having that mental checklist in your brain while they're talking. You're not typing notes as you're kind of seeing them over your shoulder, right? You're actually having that connection with them, so you don't miss that. And
Right.
it really elevates things for obviously the pet parents, but also the staff, because it's more fulfilling for you as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, I feel confident. Like it builds your confidence, Heather. Like just knowing you're like, look at all these things I got done. It's positive. Every 15 minutes, every however minutes you're going through, if every appointment, you're like, I finished that, did that. That's your inner voice is now changing to a more positive light. And that shines. It shines to the client, the patient, and your team. And when you're in your groove and you're like, I got it done, I'm good, I'm rolling, I got it, that is contagious. And so, yes, it has definitely just helped culture even more.
Mm-hmm. Now, what is one thing that you would tell another vet who might be considering using like something like Tails AI in their clinic? Do you have any words of advice?
Consistency, and it's like working out. I wouldn't know that because I don't work out. It's been on my list. It's like, but from what I hear, consistency is key, right? Eating healthy, working out, building a habit. You can have the idea all day long, but I would encourage them. It is going to take a while to get this habit down. You've got habits to break, and it takes consistent intention and time and patience with yourself. Nothing is going to work perfectly. AI has to get to know you, and you have to get to know AI, and it takes time. So I would just and Dermot, fill in here because we talk about this a lot. I feel like it's building the habit, being patient and consistent, and giving yourself time. This is not going to happen overnight because the trauma of vet med has not happened to you overnight.
No, I agree completely. And the best analogy I can use, we can talk about Simon Sinek. I'll go to a slightly different side of business. There's a movie out at the moment. There's a trailer from DreamWorks of this. I forget, it's a robot movie. It's an animated movie. And on the trailer, essentially the gist of this movie is that a little gosling imprints on this robot, and the robot's trying to be the gosling's mother, and the robot is trying to decide how to teach this gosling how to swim, and the fox picks up the little gosling and drop kicks the little gosling out into the middle of the lake. AI does not work like that. And the line from the fox is, hey, let me teach you how I'll teach this gosling how to swim just like my mom taught me how to swim, and dropped it. AI is very different. AI, if you're going to use AI in the practice, it's a case of having to think about doing it, introducing the team to the concept, knowing that there are going to be pain points along the way, and having to figure it out. You're going to have people who resist change. Liza will freely attest. We were talking about it, we were playing with it, and in reality, the impetus was, Well, in Liza's case, she did get drop kicked out in the middle of the way, unfortunately, and her associate's doing great, and she had a medical emergency, and she's doing amazing, and she's an amazing associate and everything like that. But on that morning, circumstance drop kicked Liza out into the middle of the lake, and she had to figure out how to, and she decided to figure out how to swim rather than drown. But she had a team around her who were there and ready to help her, support her in doing that, understood what was happening. And so they've been kind of preempted, but it takes time, it takes effort, it takes intention to make it happen. People have to understand the roadmap. You have to start with small bites. And then you have to be willing to, there probably, for anybody who's seriously considering this, I would suggest looking at two different kind of concepts out there. The first is a thing called the hype curve. And so the hype curve is a concept that's out there in any kind of innovation. And the hype curve essentially describes the concept of, I got some triggered and I want to start doing something. And then I get elated about how I'm going to do this. And then all of a sudden, reality kicks in and you hear, oh my God, this isn't going to be quite as easy. And there's a drop. And then there's a acceleration then beyond that once you kind of hit that low, and then you're off to the races. And so from a personal point of view, for anybody doing that, understanding the hype curve is clutch. Probably the second curve for people to think about is a curve that was kind of described in a book called, an old book again, called Crossing the Chasm. It's from way back. I think the third edition was, I just looked it up this morning because I knew I was going to talk about it. The third edition came out in 2014. So God only knows when the first edition came out. But the concept is this, and it is that we as human beings are divided up into different groups. Some of us are innovators, some of us are early adopters, some of us are kind of main early group, some of us are laggards. And so understanding where your team fits when it comes to adopting technology is also clutch, because it's not going to happen overnight. It does take time, it does take work, it does take coaching your team. One of the techs in one of the other hospitals that's in our community, I was sitting talking with her one day and she said, well, until it's going to spell Simparica Trio correct for me, I'm not using it. And we all work with people like that, right? We all are. And I think it becomes a concept of actually having to show people the value, understand the value, and coach them along and bring them along and realize that this is not about learning a tool. This is about changing your mentality, changing your approach, changing your systems to accomplish the task of going home on time by introducing various techniques, including this tool.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's huge. And as someone who's been, a member of a team more often than the head of a team, I can attest to that. And really, like we said earlier, right? Like setting the intention. The intention is what comes first. And it doesn't do any good if you set an intention and then just kind of strong arm everyone along, right? You need to encourage, you need to cater to their learning styles, you need to make it fun. And in order to get everyone on board, right? Because this change is hard. Everyone knows change is hard, right? And you can't just push people to change. You have to really encourage them and inspire them. And in the fact that they can see firsthand, like how this improvement is affecting, yourself, Liza, and how much easier things have gotten. That's really it. The proof is in the pudding, right? People want to see, how is this really going to help us? They're not as likely to believe if you just kind of tell them, right, how it's going to help. Now, I did want to ask.
Along those lines, Heather, before we go on there and thinking, can I paint a picture of what it looks like in a clinic?
Yes, please.
So paint a picture of whatever it is, whatever painful thing you've done in the past, whether it is deciding to exercise, give up smoking, whatever it is, I want you to think through, I want you to imagine the far end of whatever that challenge is that you've accomplished and how you felt on that. I want, if you can think about that, but then, and parlay that into vet medicine and parlay that into your stressful clinic at the moment of where you are. And imagine a world where you walk into a room with a client and you have your iPad in your hand and you just pop it down on the desk beside you and you sit down on the stool in front of the client and you just say, hey, do you mind if I use this? Do you mind if I use my iPad here to help us take notes? And you just hit go on the button and then you have a conversation with that client. you don't even have to worry about records. You're not over in the corner trying to type something in, looking over your shoulder, trying to do this, or hoping that the person who's typing it behind you is getting it right or whatever. You're actually engaged eyeball to eyeball with the client. And now your brain can suddenly go from being a paper pushing, administrating vet to a caring, practicing clinical vet.
Mm-hmm.
And when you walk out of that room, having had that conversation with the client that you've now bonded with more powerfully than you've ever bonded with a client before, just because you're present in that room, and you walk out of that room and you're walking down the hall and you hit process, by the time you get back to the treatment area, your record is there for you to review with all the soap notes in there to be done. And then you walk on, and your team who are there can just take a quick look at those notes and get rolling on whatever needs to be done. And meanwhile, they handed you a call that needed to be done with a client, something coming back. And again, you're on that client. You hit the button again when you're on the phone with the client, having the conversation with them, and your software actually generates the notes from that call that are there. And then there was somebody else you needed to text, and so again, you are you're not very eloquent in type. You're not very fast at typing. You're not very eloquent at putting things together. So you just let your system do the work for you from the point of view of create a text to a client that says, I'm happy with such and such, and the blood work looks normal, and you're using your Irish accent or your South Carolina accent. And it just generates this nice text that you proof and then send. That's what a world in AI in vet practice can look like. And so you've accomplished three things while they're loading the next room. And in reality, what ends up happening in the current world is we go home at the end of the day and we're sitting at the baseball field with the laptop in front of us, and we can't even remember half of what we've talked with the client anyhow. And we're belong to Perfectionists Anonymous. And we're worried that the board is going to come after us, or someone's going to sue us, or this, that, and the other. And you hear a cheer from the crowd, and your kid caught a ball, and you missed it. That's the difference between deciding to use AI and sticking with the old system. And I think from the point of view of getting a team up and going on it and thinking it through, creating that picture, painting that journey to where you want to go, and then knowing that it is not going to be a straight shot there. It's going to be a case of, oh, hang on a second, we realize that our internet is not quite as good as it is in our building, and we need to add a router or add a hotspot, or I deleted that before it processed, so it is one of these situations where, but if you're constantly reminding your team of the journey you want to take, and then they together are empowered to help you there. It's not your job as a practice owner. It's not your job as a veterinarian. It's your job to set the vision, and it's your job to empower that team to help everybody get there.
No, you said that one of our technicians, Madeline, last week, I had forgotten to hit record, and my tech did it, and it was monumental for me. And I've been doing this since April, and I forgot to hit record. Let's say, so it's not perfect, but you do need your team there with you to see the end goal, to help you, because you are going to forget to hit record or forget to hit process, because it's a habit. But I will say my clients are pretty impressed, because now I was so shy about I'm going to do my note. I'm just hitting record. And now I'm like, hey, in order to get your notes for medical insurance, because what vet isn't submitting their notes for medical insurance for these pets, which is wonderful, by the way, but we got to get our notes to them. I can look at my client and say, I'll be able to get your notes real fast. Turnaround time went from 1 week to now 24, 48 hours. The clients are impressed with the technology that you utilize in the clinic. Mm-hmm. It's impressive. You look good. So
yeah, exactly. It helps with that value prop, right? And not only are they getting more connection with the vet, but they see that you're utilizing technology to be more efficient, right? You're a vet of the future.
Yes. It's like the Jetsons.
Yeah, exactly.
We're the Jetsons.
So can you tell me, do you have any tips on encouraging adoption of a product like Tails AI with your team? What did you find worked the best?
Well, I have a very tech-led team. So for me, I will say they love the summarize. So there's a summarized patient, because when you're going in My techs use Tails a little bit more than I do because they prep the room. They present the room to me before I go in. And so the best, fastest way, instead of going into records, scanning through my notes, what was the last medication she prescribed, and then having to read my notes and search and then click out of that and open another window, they can hit summarize and it summarizes the patient right there in a small space, quick, easy, efficient. They can look at me and say, this dog's here for a recheck. You treated with this. We're here, and they present it so much fast, and their stress is down because they can hit that. It helps with discharging patients. They can say, like, Tails will create a template for you for surgery discharges or whatever you want it to. And it's beautiful. Obviously you review it, accept it, but it went from us having to have templates saved in the computer with, well, what's our discharge for a cystotomy? And, all the different things, or a splint. Tails will do it for you.
Mm-hmm. And personalize it too, which is something that I love. Yeah.
Putting the patient's name in there. We had a continuing education, a lunch and learn earlier this week. And the speaker just mentioned, instead of saying, oh, the pet, if you look at a client and you just say their pet's name, so having your pet's name just in every part of that discharge, that's personable, that's caring. So it's just those little things that make your client feels connected. You only have a certain space of time to make that client trust you, like you, and connect and come back to you. Why would you spend it feeling frustrated and mentally exhausted by balancing and juggling all the balls of the admin side when Digital's doing it for you? You can like Dermot said, you put the iPad down, hit record, and you are present. You're speaking by name to the patient. You're able to put in all these nice personal touches to that journey that we weren't doing before at all. And even being we're even more present on our phone calls because we hit record and the system's listening to us and it records it. So I'm not having to think, all right, don't forget to keep myself covered that I mentioned all these things. Digital does it for you. You can relax and be present with the owner. Digital has your back. It's detailed and it's accurate.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I know you spoke earlier about how, maybe I'm paraphrasing this, but how your records are kind of a reflection of you as a vet. And these client interactions are just as important to have in the record. And the fact that you're not then creating additional work for your frontline staff, right? Your receptionist or your technicians, maybe that are taking phone calls, they don't have an additional step. It's kind of the same thing as the quick soap and recording, right? You're able to do this instantly, which makes the records more robust without adding additional work. And it makes your clinic look better too, to those insurance companies, to the referral centers, to anyone you need to send those records to.
Yeah. And
I think the other thing in getting a team up and going and thinking about trying to get or looking at getting an engagement and getting to a place where you're using it full, I think it is important to educate your team about what AI actually is and what it's doing and what its limitations are. Mm-hmm. And so a person who understanding the whole, one of the phenomenal people at the team at Digital, Mira, talked to me one day. I was talking to her and she's here and she's here. One of the things is that people need to understand that they have a responsibility in getting AI to work as well. It is not a coffee maker. It is not a toaster. It is a smart tool that will get smarter with time. It is a smart tool that helps you get through your day. And the best way to get through it is to understand that it may need to be taught how to spell. It is a tool that definitely fits into the category of trust and verify. And so understanding that it is generating record for coaching your team around the fact that it's generating record, and we should appreciate the massive amount of work that it's done for us and just cross-check and verify that everything looks good and go. Because if you bring a team with that mindset into play, then that team is going to take what AI has done for you, fine tune it and go. versus if you don't tee up your team with that type of education and process, they're going to come along and see, well, they will only, it's human nature. We will only see what it did wrong.
Yes.
You know, the 1% that it did wrong, and we will toss the baby out with the bathwater, you know? And so I think teeing up the team, this is one of those journeys that one needs to decide if one is going to take one's team on. Paint where you're going, paint the hurdles that are going to come along, work together, meet regularly to discuss what's working, what's not working, make some tweaks. People will find is that it will work differently, just as Liza was saying, it works differently for her techs than it does for her. It works differently for Liza than her associate. But understanding all of those nuances help massively in getting to a point of execution.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. Like teaching it, the fact that it learns, it can learn from you. You can give it, direction, right? If it doesn't give you what you want, then maybe rephrase or, tell it that it didn't do a good job and that you want it to change, right? It's a learning function, right? That can help with exactly what you're trying to do. If you're not able to achieve the outcome that you're looking for, just either ask a different way or, try different things. It's definitely like that. Let me see. There was one, we've got like 10 minutes left. So I just want to encourage people to ask questions. We do have a couple questions that I'm going to get to in just a second. But I have two more questions that I want to ask. One is, what do you wish more people in vet med knew about AI? And then I wanted to ask Liza specifically how you're kind of running your rooms. I know you kind of touched on it already, but if there's any other tips that you have for someone who might be wanting to try like Tails AI themselves. We do have a free trial coming up for our digital clinics, which I will get to at the end. I'll give you some more details, but that might be helpful information for those that want to try it.
Yeah, no, I think so you can go about it two ways. I think as I started, I obviously have trust issues, but I guess who doesn't by the time but to build that trust for me, what I did was my tech and I'm just going to do it kind of how two ways you could do it today. Your tech hits summarize patient, they get their lowdown on the history, and then they present it to you. You go into the room. My tech holds the patient for me. I'm talking to the owner, doing my exam, have my moment with the owner, wrap it up, come into the back, and you can go to quick soap and you have that option. And this is how I did it in April. I mean, just as I was just watching it, I had to see it to believe it. I really had to. So if you're in that mentality, in that category, speak out the whole room, the exam, patient presented for this, go through your exam findings, your options to the owner and what they elected, and bam, you're done. And you can see it unfold beautifully. My techs do not stay in the room with me the whole time. Once I'm done with my exam, they're out and doing other things for me. So that's one way you can do it, especially so that's how I built my trust with it and learned it. And now I am on a path where I am intentionally going into the room and I'm hitting record and it's recording me in the room. So when I first walk in with the tech, after they've presented it to me, I say, hey, how you doing? Just saying, and I, do my little small chat intro. And I say, okay, I've got computers in every one of my rooms, and you can do that. Or if you have your iPad. So the iPad, I do feel like works better for me just because I like holding it and it's right there in my hands. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to record us just so that I can get this done accurately and on time for you. I know a lot of us have moved on to pet insurance, and so that I can get your records to them quickly and on time. I'm just going to hit record. It's just summarizing the exam only. And it's great because if the other client talks about other things like their beach trip or whatever else you talk about in the room, Digital AI is focusing on the patient and the exam and the pertinent information. So I would very much encourage you to record in the room. If you're one that can jump right into that, great. If you're more like me and just needed a little bit of get into the shallow water before you get into the deep, that's fine. I think both work very efficiently, but I am now really perfecting myself with recording in the room. So after I'm done, I'm like, okay, I walk out of the room, check it off. It processes it. By the time I walk to my tech in the back treatment area, it's synced to the record. I review it, there is a thumbs up and a thumbs down option. If there's something that you're like, I didn't like the way that was worded, give feedback, because you will reap the benefits of that. The only way, it's like Mira said, Digital heavily relies on that feedback. And the simple things with us was just spelling of some of the drugs, and that was an easy fix. But those are two ways you can do it. I'm continuing to perfect my way of doing it in the room and finding the vulnerability in front of it. Sometimes a complete stranger, if I've never met the client, they'd be like, I'm recording us. You will be recorded. And they're fine with it, because if you expect, you're like, hey, this is how we keep things accurate, real time, so that I'm not having to try to remember it later when my kid goes to bed at night and missing time with my husband. I'm in the moment getting it done. It's accurate. So either way works well. I would encourage recording in the room. I think that is just the most freeing one for me. But if you have to build up to it, either works.
Mm-hmm. That's fair, for sure. Okay, so I want to get to some questions before we wrap up. So the first question is from Dr. Heather, and she's asked, is AcharaVet a company that shares ownership of clinics with veterinarians?
Yes, we're all partners together we're partners together in Achara. We're partners together in the local hospitals. Yep.
Yes. Okay.
And we're not private equity backed. We're a company who's planning on being here for the long haul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it looks like Dr. Heather's also asked, how does Digital deal with internet outages? And I do have an answer for that one here from my wonderful product team. And they have recommended using your phone data and hotspot, or continue to work directly from your mobile device, like the phone or the tablet, like Dr. Liza was saying. You can record, if you're using the Quick Soap and they do have a power outage, you can just record on your phone and then upload the audio files when you have connection back. So there's definitely ways around that. Let's see. We've got a question from Southern Trail Animal Clinic, who has said, I guess if you're doing in-room recording, you would have to say your physical exam findings out loud for Tails to hear it, correct?
Yes, but I also think that builds connection, and it kind of validates what they're getting out of their exam. That's how, so, and you can do it either way. You can hit record. You're like, hey, we're gonna do this. And you can hit it right when you start the exam or a little bit before. But yes, it hears you. So when I'm talking to owners, my method or kind of my rhythm with the client is I'm like, all right, let's do your exam. And I'm like, oh yeah, nose, no nasal discharge. Because I feel like when you're narrating your exam to the client, you build value. And so that's how I record.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. I think we had a webinar last month with Rue, and they made two really good points. With the patient summary feature that Tails does is amazing for relief vets, because they can walk in, they can get all of that information encapsulated very quickly and easily before going into an exam. And the other thing they said was exactly that, the value prop for pet parents. When you are saying these things aloud, you're making these observations out loud, they can understand more exactly what they're getting from you, right? And all of the inner workings, right? Like, we go through so many different things in our head while we're doing, these interactions, and being able to say them out loud, the pet parents are like, oh, wow, yeah, that's a lot of stuff that they're going through, considering and ruling out. So it definitely increases that value and builds that trust.
It does. You can educate as you go. You just find small tidbits as you go with each body system. And I feel like you build that value and that comprehend, like, yeah, I got my money out of that. You get that money's worth, because you do. That's what it is today. It is, okay, if I'm paying this, what do I get? Well, you were educated throughout each system of this exam. Yeah. And, it's not just because I've had it time and time again in the past where, and this is how we are different. We don't take your pet in the back and you're just like, okay, it looks good. Like, and to a client who isn't educated in the veterinary way, they just think, okay, she just looked at my pet.
Yeah. Yeah.
I looked and evaluated and ruled out X, Y, and Z. And so, yes, I narrate my exam.
Yes. Yes. Amazing. Well, we are getting close to the end of time, so I just wanted to put out some information, because we have a very exciting offer for Digital clinics that have not experimented with Tails yet. We do have a 14-day trial available. It's available right in the software. You can enjoy full access to Tails AI Assistant and AI dictation. The Quick Soap that Dr. Liza was speaking of, the really exciting thing, you can get it for 14 days for absolutely free. And if you're impressed, which, you probably will be, you can easily upgrade directly within the software. If you are having issues accessing the trial, you can always email us at tails@digitail.io. But we will be following up with a little video on how to activate the trial via email after this webinar wraps up. And we're excited to get everyone's feedback. Like Dr. Liza said, and like Mira always says, we do really rely on customer feedback to let us know what's working, what's not working, what we need to tweak. And we're always working really hard for you guys to make sure that we can alleviate that administrative burden and really utilize technology to its fullest in order to benefit all of the people in vet med and also the patients and pet parents as well. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, Dermot. Thank you so much, Liza, for participating in this. It's been great. You guys have really been so valuable in our fine-tuning of tails. We'll say that.
Well, Heather, and thank you to you and to all the team at Digitail for everything you guys are doing. Your mission from the point of view, the impact you want to have on vet medicine is second to none. And we're living it every day. We're living the value that you guys bring to getting people home on time, having people enjoy being veterinarians again, having techs enjoy being techs again, having clients feel the engagement and the contact and the relationship that's built now from just kind of back to human on human contact. And so, no, thank you very much for everything you guys are doing.
Well, thank you guys so much. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We are happy to help. Thank you so much.